All right. All right. So welcome to the March ECEF webinar. I'm glad that you could be here today. Brandon and I are both here, and we have Maria interpreting on the Spanish channel. And then I also wanted to introduce Dorothy, if you would like to introduce yourself, Dorothy Spence.
Thanks, Emma. Good morning. 11 o'clock is always a weird time for me. I'm like, is it morning? It's not afternoon, but hi, everyone. My name is Dorothy Spence. I am the Early Learning Programs Director. So ECEF is one of the programs that I support as the director, in addition to Preschool Promise, Baby Promise, Birth Through Five, Literacy Plan, Relief Nurseries, and OPK and Healthy Families Oregon. I had to go through all of them in my head.
You have
um,
a big list.
yeah.
And sorry, I put you on the spot. We didn't talk about introductions, but
It's okay. Yeah, so I've been doing this for 2 months, but previously at Delk was the manager for the child care assistance program. So primarily the team that works on employment related daycare. And also have a background as an early learning hub director for 7.5 years before coming to Delk. So really good to be here. Happy to be in support of Emma in this webinar.
thank you, Dorothy. Thanks for being here today. Um, so yeah, now you have all met Dorothy. She's lovely, and I don't think she'll be at all of our webinars, but she might pop into some of them. So this is a good opportunity to join us today. So I will go ahead and switch over to our next slide. So on the agenda today, we're going to start off with an icebreaker. And then as we started last time, we're going to have what I've designated as grantee time, and we'll just see how this goes moving forward. I'll revisit what that means when we get to that part after the icebreaker. And then we'll have an evaluation update and then some ECEF updates. And as usual, we will have at the end time for questions for those that want to stay and ask questions. Does anyone have any questions about the agenda today? Okay. All right. And Brandon is going to help me out by putting the sign-in sheet for today's webinar in the chat. And I wanted to highlight that in case you have saved the previous link, this is a new link. So just always make sure to click on the link that we put in the chat. This is an updated one. And so we want to make sure you're logging into the updated webinar sign-in sheet that we have. Just wanted to flag that. So Brandon will, since folks tend to join us a little bit later as they can throughout the meeting, Brandon will continue putting that in the chat for everyone. All right. So I stole this icebreaker idea from a team meeting that we had with our programs team recently. I just thought it was kind of a fun one. So often we do like weather or seasonal type icebreakers, and I thought that that was getting a little old. I needed to mix it up. So today I was curious to ask as the icebreaker, if you could have two superpowers, what would they be? And it could just be one. If there's only one that you could think of that's like, oh, I've always wished I could do that. Um, I just thought sometimes it's hard to decide on one. I know it was for me when I did this in another meeting. So, as we usually do, you can write responses in the chat, like waterfall your responses. And I always invite whoever would like to share out with the group to come off mute. You don't have to raise your hand. You can just come off mute and share. And I don't know if Brandon, it looks like, do you want to go first? Okay,
Oh, I was gonna uh,
start us
quickly
off.
throw in there that he would like to fall asleep whenever he wants, super healing, and transport to any place in the world from home. Annabelle speak many languages.
Mm,
Shauna, super strength. Kitterly, read minds and be invisible. Flying
mm,
and invisibility.
Power of persuasion, end all wars. Absolutely. Mine is a lot less. I don't want to be utilized by any government agency based on my superpower, which is where this has been a thought of mine forever. I would have chicken telepathy because I just want to know what chickens are thinking. I don't want to talk to them.
Oh my
I
gosh.
just want to hear their words. So that's all. Ooh, yes, Annabelle. Time traveling, just like Doctor Who.
Ooh,
Absolutely. Great choice.
I
that's
wanted mind
amazing.
control, but I didn't want to write it because I want to explain why.
Oh,
Yes, Floor, please.
yeah, please go ahead.
The mind control I want to have is so that like if somebody is feeling like not confident, I would like control them to think that they're like the most confident person ever. Or,
Oh my
and this
gosh.
is like on my sketchier side, if I go to the store, like a fancy, really, really fancy store, I like hand over a dollar bill and I'm like, it's actually $100 bill. Um, and then everyone around them thinks the same so that they're not at the end of the day being like, why is your till short?
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
but
I
also
love
that
Excellent.
that.
like control from far away so that like maybe if I can control people in office, it would be for good.
hmm
Then none of this nightmare would happen. So yeah, that's that's where my mind control powers would go. And also teleportation, because that sounds fun.
Ooh. Okay. I think we need to hook you up with more than two superpowers then, it sounds like. I think you'll put them to
You
good
can have
use.
my extra
So,
superpower, Floor.
yeah.
I'll just listen to chickens and drink coffee on my porch.
Yeah.
That's so wholesome. I love it.
The giving other people confidence with your superpower is one of the sweetest answers I've heard to that question. I love it. Mine, I feel like one of the more basic ones that I think a lot of people might share, and I think Brandon read one, is I have always wanted to know what it feels like to fly. I've had dreams of flying. I can remember my dreams pretty well, and I often, like my best dreams, I'm like soaring above, just like looking down at the world. And so I would love to be able to do that. And then the other one I'd try to use for good, and I would love to be able to heal any and all ailments. So cure people of health woes. Would anyone else like to come off mute to share?
Gabriella said transport to anywhere in the world and control the weather white storm. Because Storm is the best
Oh.
X-Men, and I will die on that hill. But that's not
Mhm.
the question today.
I completely agree.
I think for me, I think make things appear like whatever it's in my imagination. Like if I want or whatever food I want to eat, I can just be like, okay, done here, the best food, chicken, pizza, whatever, or any anything that I can imagine, just
Yeah,
make it happen.
that would be great.
I like that you specifically went with food because it means that you'll just never cook again. I love that.
It does.
Can you imagine how great that would be? I mean, like, oh, you hungry? Oh, here, food. Just be feeding people.
Yeah, that's true.
Food
Some people
is the
might
way
not
to
love that
people's
superpower
heart.
because they love cooking, but otherwise, I only have moments where I love cooking. So I would use that superpower on the regular. What were you saying, Brandon?
Oh, I was just saying that food is the way to people's hearts.
It's true. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. If there's no one else who wants to come off mute and share, I think we will move along. I loved hearing those responses. That was really fun. I'll try to come up with a good one for next time. All right. Oh, another person. All right. So moving on, I wanted to have the time that we talked about at the last webinar that I don't know if you have an idea for a fancier name, but I just am titling it Grantee Time. I wanted to have some built-in time that was just dedicated to all of you having the space to bring something forward that you'd want to share about your programming or ask questions of other grantees to kind of cross collaborate, share ideas, if you have a program or event coming up that you want to highlight or do some outreach for, you could give a little plug for that happening, or even a community event that you know about that you think would be useful. So yeah, I just wanted to create this space and really have it be a space that we sit back, and I hope that either through chat, or the hope is coming off mute and um, sharing or asking some information of each other and outside of breakout groups. So yeah, that is kind of the goal and format for this 10 or I structured it as 10 or 15 minutes because I figure some days there might be less time. So it's just a flexible time. It can go longer um if a conversation starts or there's more folks who want to share, or it can be shorter if there aren't as many things to connect about that day. So I'm just going to pause and ask if anyone would like to jump in. And again, this is a very low pressure, not like a presentation, just opportunity to share, ask questions, um, or give plugs for what you have going on. I'm gonna check the chat just to see if anyone is putting anything in there. Not yet.
No, I'm watching the chat too, Emma.
Okay, great.
And just as I said that, Jeffrey threw out that BPI's Blacklist or Blacklit is Lit event is this Sunday, 10 to 3 at the Lloyd Center at Barnes and
Ooh.
Noble.
Oh, cool. And
If I
Jeff,
could read Jeffrey, that would be the most helpful part of that. So again, it BPI's Black Lit is Lit is the name of that event.
I love the name of that. It's great. Um, Jeff, I'm assuming you don't want to come off mute because you put it in the chat, but I don't know if you want to clarify, like if it's an invitation to invite certain community members, or what you're
Yeah,
thinking.
absolutely. Everybody is invited. We've done this for a number of years. This will be the third year we've done it at the Lloyd Center, Barnes and Noble. That's a very family oriented event. There'll be Black children's authors reading at various points during the day. There'll be a craft table. There'll be some STEM activities, and great opportunities to just kind of mingle with folks. There should be some food there. And so I hope people can come on out. It's for all families. Anybody who might wander into a Barnes and Noble is
Mm-hmm.
welcome to participate. And
That's
that'll be
amazing. Thank you.
Sunday,
This Sunday.
this
And
Sunday
at the Barnes and Noble where? I
at
think
Lloyd Center,
at Lloyd Center. Okay.
Northeast
Nice
Portland.
central location. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with everyone. I'm curious if anyone else on this group has been before, but I'm guessing not.
Jennifer put in that we are rolling along fairly uneventfully, but they are working on a program evaluations for PSU, but no other big updates for them.
Okay. Great. Thank you for putting that in the chat.
And then Todos Juntos will be doing Dia de los Niños event on April 26th at each library in Sandy, Estacada, and Canby. And there'll also be a parade in Canby that they're going to be handing out books and bubbles with the Children's Center. Oh, fun.
Mm. Oh, wow.
Yeah, that
Would
sounds great.
you be willing, I don't know if because I'm not looking at the chat, would more details be required if someone wanted to go? Like, if so, would you put your email in the chat so other grantees could reach out to you if you don't mind?
They're all
That way
we're
they
gonna
could
be
get
like,
addresses
yeah,
or something.
Sure, I'll do that. And we don't have all the flyers done yet, so once we get those, I
Oh
can share
yeah.
them out with you too.
Okay.
It's just we're in the works of getting it all planned, but I know that the
Okay.
parade will be like from 10 to noon in Canby. There's some other partners that'll be handing out other things too during the parade in Canby.
Okay.
So
That sounds like it's going to be really fun.
yeah.
And Lorelai threw in the chat that she'd love to hear how the families and staff are all doing right now, just kind of across the board.
Mm-hmm. A great question, Lorelai.
So
Um,
are we just jumping in or?
Yes. Sorry,
Okay.
my mic was
Yeah.
muted. So as I
Go
was
ahead and
shaking my
jump in.
head and saying yes, you couldn't hear me. Yeah, just feel free to jump in.
Okay, so kind of along the same lines, we are with our literacy grant, we have a team that's been working. It's a combination of our school district early learning programs and our public library and the Friends of the Public Library. And so we have a pretty ambitious timeline between now and then, and our one of our big events coming up is similar called Dia de los Libros, and that will be with our public library. We've been doing bilingual story time. We've had literacy moments at any parent event. We also have a field trip and activity, all literacy based, coming up. Additionally, our team, we've been doing coaching with the Children's Institute, and two of our team members just attended a phenomenal conference in Oakland this last weekend. And so I don't know the name of it. Do you by chance? Okay. We don't know the name of it, but they highly recommend it. We are considering bringing one of the speakers from that to our community, potentially to the
Oh.
public library as part of our marketing for the events. And she was very bilingual, just very deep in early literacy and work with families. So we're really excited. I'm missing something else. We have an upcoming conference actually in Portland that has a branch of early literacy that our entire team is headed to in April. I didn't mention Dia de los Libros. It's at the very end of April. And we're just putting together our timeline, which we will happily share probably in next month's report. Our families and children and families have been dealing heavily. All of our teams have been dealing heavily with immigration and potential immigration issues. So I'm sure that most of our partners on the call have been experiencing this as well. We held a workshop. All of these are word of mouth, non-advertised, with local community partners. We're considering holding follow-up events. This is to help families organize documentation, connect to resources, et cetera, et cetera. So Sarah and I are part of a task force in Lane County for all of the schools. I think most everyone has participated. So we have common note packets that we've been trained on that we're sharing with families. I think some of you may have been on the call. COSA put it out as well. That was last month and did a training for the packet. There have been now at least 4 generations of that packet, so things have been added. The Mexican consulate came to Eugene last month for a couple of days. So there's a lot of that kind of work going on with families.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely been attendance impacted, but it seems like there's kind of a push and pull with that. So we'll be navigating that as well as like food insecurity and those kinds of things. And then finally, our team has been just completed parents as teachers training. So we put our family support specialists and our Little Lions team through that, the first foundational training for that piece. So a lot going on.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing all that, Heather. And
In
I'm
the
glad to.
chat,
Oh, go ahead.
in addition to that, Nia is having a preschool for all information and sign up party at Barbie's Village on March 25th from 4 to 7, and there'll be food activities and a bouncy house.
Ooh,
And
nice.
Oh, sorry, Brandy, if you want to jump in, please do.
Yeah, you'd come off mute before you and Heather unmuted at the same time, it looked like.
You got it. I was just,
Okay,
just that we will have a bouncy house. Of course, people will have to sign waivers
waivers.
before they
Yes,
bounce, but that's all.
yeah.
That's all I was going to say. 10 out of 10 though. Bouncy houses are a great time. Um, Laura asked for folks to share any conferences that their teams are attending or have attended because they would love some more um resources. And then also in response to kind of Lorelai's question, the response has been it's been kind of tough because a lot of folks are trying to stay focused and just keep energy up in light of the day-to-day news, which I know all of us have kind of been hit with. ACF has announced, and I'm sure y'all have seen those letters or the letter at this point, but have announced that they will begin targeting programs that benefit and assist undocumented folks, which may be scary for like our migrant and seasonal Head Start programs. And folks are definitely kind of feeling those stress, which I think honestly aligns right into what Heather was saying from South Lane. And I know that like their team of folks across Lane County have some great packets. So I'm just gonna throw Heather out as a person to reach out to for those packets to kind of help your folks because I know she's got a ton of great resources for that.
Thanks, Brandon. Does anyone else want to share how how are you doing? How are your participants doing? Lorelai, that was a good reflection question.
Hola, yo sí quisiera compartir también acerca de lo que está sucediendo en nuestra comunidad aquí en Salem Kaiser.
Déjame ver si María, no puedo escuchar a María. Yes, now I can hear you.
Ok, sí, yo quisiera compartir acerca de lo que está sucediendo aquí con las familias que estamos sirviendo en el área de Salem Kaiser. Como ustedes saben, este tema de inmigración ha puesto en un riesgo muy grande a la comunidad. Desafortunadamente, el miedo todavía está, tanto con el personal como con las familias. Lo que estamos haciendo es darle confianza a las familias con la relación que ya tenemos con las familias y la confianza que ellos tienen hacia nosotros. Les estamos invitando que este lugar donde estamos sirviéndoles es un lugar seguro para ellos y las acciones que nosotros tomamos fue poner anuncios en nuestro edificio de que es un lugar privado, no puede entrar, solamente hay autorización para el personal. Eso es algo donde nuestras familias se sienten seguras. También hemos contactado otras organizaciones para dar entrenamientos sobre sus derechos, conozca sus derechos. Se han repartido paquetes. Quizás a lo mejor ya escucharon ustedes las tarjetas rojas. Hemos repartido más de 500 tarjetas rojas a las familias que servimos. Hay otros entrenamientos que se llaman los observadores legales. También hemos dado esos entrenamientos a la comunidad que quieran ser observadores legales y también para que aprendan qué es un observador legal y cuál es el rol que ellos están tomando. Creo que la ansiedad también, el estrés con el personal dentro más interno con la organización es sobre los fondos. Sobre los fondos, creo que hay mucha estrés ahorita en este tiempo. Yo creo que cada año, cada que estamos en un proceso de transición, viene el estrés y viene la incertidumbre si vamos a obtener o no obtener los fondos. Muchos de ustedes saben que nuestra organización quizás es la única en el área de Salem Kaiser que trabajamos directamente con las familias. Empoderamos a los padres de familia por medio de nuestros programas. Entonces, no muchos fondos están llegando por el simple hecho de que se les da el servicio a los papás y yo creo que tenemos que empezar nosotros estamos haciendo la abogacía de que el papá es el primer maestro de nuestros niños y ellos son los que tienen el empoderamiento de poder ayudar a nuestros niños en la educación para que tengan un éxito estudiantil. Creo que ha habido muchísimo estrés, tanto con el personal por los fondos como el clima de inmigración. Hay mucho estrés. Efectivamente, comparto lo que habían compartido anteriormente. La asistencia bajó un poco con nosotros. Lo bueno es que nosotros tenemos también en el programa dos sesiones de las mismas clases, uno donde lo pueden tomar virtual y el otro en presencia. Entonces es algo que ha estado ayudando a que estas familias que se sienten todavía inseguras de venir en presencia, tenemos esta otra herramienta de que puedan continuar participando hasta que ellas se sientan un poquito más confortables de poder salir y estar participando en presencia. So, es algo que sí necesitamos mucha unidad para la comunidad inmigrante. Necesitamos estar unidos, necesitamos seguir abogando y yo creo que son unos meses de mucho estrés para todos. Yo creo que para todos en general, no solamente para una comunidad, yo creo que para todos. Gracias. Oh, perdón, otra cosa también. Eh, Hemos tenido contacto con el consulado mexicano. El consulado mexicano quiere venir aquí a Salem a tener estos entrenamientos de servicio también y ver qué otros servicios tiene el consulado mexicano para las familias y lo queremos hacer más interno, más privado para nuestras propias familias. Es como hemos estado llevando a cabo estos entrenamientos para toda la comunidad a la que servimos. Es muy interno, no anunciamos nada en las redes sociales de cuándo es el evento, de qué se trata, sino es más el servicio directamente para las familias que servimos. Gracias. Ahora sí, ya terminé.
Thank you so much, Yadira. Gracias, Yadira, por compartir todo eso con nosotros. I hope everyone could understand. I know it was a little choppy at parts, but thank you, Maria, for interpreting what Yadira shared with us today. I appreciate that. Okay. Um, I need to move us along because we are behind schedule. I'm not doing a good job sticking to the agenda. So if anyone has anything else they would like to share or ask of other grantees, if you could I invite you to put it in the chat for now. And yeah, hopefully we can it seems like initially with the start of the grantee time, it's hard to get started, but this ended up being a great time for sharing and giving updates and giving little plugs for things that you have going on and just hearing how you are doing and how your participants are doing and how you're adapting to current day happenings, which have been difficult. So all right, I'm going to move us along, and that brings us to um, the ECEF evaluation update from Lorelai and Alexis. So take it away.
Hi, everyone. Great to see you all. I am going to be stepping in to just talk a little bit about evaluation update and how data collection is just right around the corner. So I've been having conversation with most of you, a lot of you, it's great to see you, around the 2024-2025 ECEF evaluation. I started having these conversations in around November. And from there, we started talking about planning, like who's going to be involved, how, when, and where. And as you can see in the timeline in the picture here, we're coming right around for when we encourage all organizations to start data collection, to line up with our submission date of April 15th. So I'm going to leave the timeline here for just a few seconds so you all can take a look. And then I'll go into some specifics and some reminders. Okay, I think we can move forward. The next slide kind of zooms in, so you can also take a look here. But just some important reminders for the data collection. There's three tools that we hope to be completed by families and our staff. So at the parent level, there's the caregiver reflections tool, the caregiver feedback tool, and then at the child level, there is the child level reflections tool, which can be completed either by staff or by the family member. One important note for submission is just ensure that there's not any identifying information like names when they're sent over to us. So if you did write names at the top of the form that's printed out, yeah, just erase it or Sharpie it out before sending it over to us. Mm, yes. So that was the really quick update. Thank you all for your participation and investment into the evaluation process so far. Are there any questions that I might be able to help with? If there's not any right now, please do feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to schedule a conversation. And if there are any questions over email, I can help through that method as well. So that was a really quick update on our end. And again, thank you all.
Thank you, Alexis.
Thank you.
Just going to ask one more time. Any questions for Alexis before we move on?
Just a reminder of the submissions. We got to submit them, send them to you, correct?
Yes, yeah. So you can email me them, either scanned photos or I did create, Google Drives for each organization. So if you would like to upload them there, but I think most folks are doing email, so that works well.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. And you can always email Alexis, I'm sure, with any other questions. And I know at some of the check-ins I've had with grantees, questions have come up and I've passed them along to Alexis as well. So we're all able to connect with each other to get things sorted if things come up. All right. So I wanted to share that the continuation grant survey, we are going to be sending that out this coming Monday, which is March 17th. And a shift from last time that you filled this out is that we are going to be using a Smartsheet form instead of the Word document that it was on previously. So it will be similar to format to like the monthly reports you fill out, where there's like questions on one of those forms with drop downs, and then you'll submit and you can send yourself a copy of your responses. And Brandon, with the budget piece, there will be an attachment place for them to submit, likely.
Yeah, exactly. And in that email, when Emma sends it out, there'll be a budget for just kind of what you're thinking you're going to utilize it for the next biennium for those pieces.
Yeah. And I'll give any like details and instructions within that aren't included kind of on the sidebar on the Smartsheet form itself. I'll include those in the email that I send out on Monday. Are there any questions just about that piece?
Yeah, Allison from Kairos PDX asked, so this is our reapplication for the next biennium, and when is it due?
The due date is being finalized. I've never done one of these before, so I want to make sure I give adequate time, but also get it in on with enough time for us to, get it to procurement and go through the process. So I don't know, Dorothy, if you're still here and want to chime in with what a general timeline for that looks like. I did not set a due date yet. So those are some of the details that we're still working out. Brandon, do you know if Dorothy's still here?
I'm
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
here.
sorry.
So you said the question is the timeline for when it should be returned?
Yeah, I'm not
For
sure
the-
how much like how long the period usually is. I'd say at least a month, but I was gonna just solidify that before sending it out on Monday.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable, and we can check in internally, Brandon. I mean, if you have guidance based on, since you work on other grant type of things as well.
I know that for OPK, it's a month timeline, or like historically has been. However, I don't know for sure. Bailey asked about the budget limit. So I will tackle that. For that, Bailey, um, we're operating because at this point there's no increase um to any sort of ECEF or DELC funding. Like I mentioned a couple cycles ago, or cycles, meetings, sure. I'll just make up words, I guess. A couple monthly meetings ago, that the overall budget, projected budget for DELC was a 5% increase, which was I think $5 to $6 million total, and that is for all of DELC, not just ECEF. So that's for staffing, building cost, and everything across DELC. So at this time, there's no increase to what your budget is from this biennium. If there is any sort of increase from the legislative session, that'll be finalized and sent as like an amendment to your grant agreement for next biennium. And that would be sometime between like August and November, so we're not like drowning y'all in paperwork. So, yeah, absolutely, Bailey. Any other questions?
So yeah, I will be very clear with like stating the due date when I send out the email on Monday. And I think if anyone wants to share, if they think a month seemed like a pretty standard, like good amount of time to go with. I'm curious if there are any like worries about that time frame, just to ask since we're in a meeting together. Um, I could not tell from because, we both stepped in within, I've been here a little over a year, Brandon's been here less than a year, and I saw the continuation surveys that you all filled out before. However, I couldn't tell what the deadline was, like what the time frame was based on when they were sent out. They had different dates on them, and so I wasn't sure if you have insight from how much time you were given last time, that would be helpful. But I think we're hoping we want to strike a balance between making sure you have enough time and also making sure we're kind of ahead of the game with getting everything ready before the end of June. So,
Folks in the chat seem to think a month is good, and
okay.
Dorothy said 4 weeks from Monday would be April 14th. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I just wanted to mention, I think that as long as I can't remember if in the ECF and the continuation survey, like end of year data is asked for at all.
No.
Okay. And
There
then
is.
there will be an end of year report as well, right?
Yes, but that will not be due. That's after everything ends at the end of
Yeah.
June. So those won't be overlapping time-wise.
Great. Yeah, I think as
Yeah.
long as there's no overlap and there's no
Yeah.
overlap in information, then that definitely sounds like a good timing.
Okay. Yeah, one thing at a time. So yeah, we're not asking for anything else significant in this time frame. So
Bailey also mentioned that a month is because Preschool Promise just sent theirs out and they put a month on theirs as well.
they put a month. Great. Okay. Lovely. So yeah, Dorothy said that would be April 14th. And I'll verify everything and make sure that is good to go. And we'll send out the due date with the email, and it will be on the form as well. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the next grant cycle with the information we have right now to share. So DELC does intend to continue funding for ECEF at the The hope is at the current level, and the final allocation, though, will be determined following the legislatively approved budget. We always have to wait until that process finishes to be sure of the final amounts. So that's based on what is approved legislatively. So we don't have that information yet, but we do anticipate it will be the same funding level. Sorry, adjusting my seating. With possible, Brandon had mentioned the possible, like, is that inflationary increase? We're not sure about that amount.
There's no guarantee for increase at all.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if there is, it'll come later in the biennium.
Okay. Thank you. And then the next piece is that beginning in the late spring and early summer, we're going to be starting the process of reviewing and updating the ECEF rules to ensure alignment with the legislative intentions for ECEF. And so basically that I'll talk a little bit more about what the administrative rules, just more details about the administrative rules, and also wanted to highlight that we will be having some time during our webinars to kind of reflect on current rules and definitions that we have for ECEF related to administration of the grant to kind of brainstorm together, get ideas and feedback from you all based on your knowledge and depthy experience being grantees for ECEF for as long as you have been from the onset of ECEF. And so we're hoping that this is going to be a pretty collaborative process, reflecting on the rules and making going through the process, the RAC process to update the official administrative rules. So I'm just going to read those two little bullet points I put just to clarify some about that, about administrative rules and that process. So administrative rules guide the implementation of the work of the agency. We're required to be guided by the content of the administrative rules in the work that we do with our grants. Statutes and administrative rules allow the public to have transparency on the functioning of the agency and the implementation of the programs administered by the agency and our staff. Usually, the laws passed by the Oregon legislature do not go into detail on the procedures for implementation, application, or enforcement within the grants. This is the role, those aspects are the role of the rules. So unlike the ORS and OAR, they're not officially adopted by the Legislative Assembly. DELC's rules are adopted, amended, and repealed by actions of the Early Learning Council. So just a little background knowledge there. I am new to this process as well. I'll be learning, going through the rules revision process, and I'm looking forward to delving into that with you all as well. And we also are in communication with the Department of Justice to understand what the rule changes will mean for contracts mid-cycle. So we are actually having that conversation very soon in the next several days. And so we'll be finding out more information that we can share about more tangible details about what the grants will look like for the next grant cycle. Are there any questions? I'm assuming there might be. And Dorothy, oh yeah, Dorothy, would you like to add?
So I see Lorelai's question in the chat about the rulemaking advisory committee. So we're going to follow a process that some other folks within our agency use, which is kind of a more informal engagement process before the official like rules advisory committee. The rulemaking advisory committee is usually it's a diverse set of perspectives that you can have on the rack. That's what we call them, but it's still a limited number of people. And so really wanting to make sure rather than go straight into like having a rack with several meetings where it's just a small group of people, we want to do a more comprehensive engagement before we even get to the step of having a rules advisory committee. So that's what Emma was saying. We'll utilize these webinars to begin a conversation with you all as grantees around what the current rules are, what is legislation, what the legislation says, and if there are opportunities to make sure that our grant agreements, our rules, and legislation are all in alignment together and provide the level of transparency and direction that is necessary to understand how the program is implemented. So we'll do that kind of pre-engagement with you all beginning, in the next couple of months, and then we'll have kind of the more official rulemaking process that will include the RAC towards the end of summer, beginning of fall. And that's on the Rules Advisory Committee is a completely public process. So there will be all of that information will be available through DELC's website and then would be pushed out through all of our communication channels.
Thank you so much, Dorothy, for helping answer that and clarify. Appreciate it. Are there further questions? And Brandon, did you see anything in the chat? Okay.
No, Dorothy saw it and answered it, so that's why I hopped back off mute.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I've been a part of organizations that have worked on rules before, but I'm curious, the linkage that you were mentioning, how it trickles down to our contracts. Can you say a little bit more about, I know you can't say specifics, but what might that mean? Because I'm missing that particular link.
Yep. So I'll just give a really great example because Emma and I were looking at this the other day. We realized that there are definitions in your grants that actually aren't in rule. And so one of the things that we're trying to look at is, do these things align? Do we actually have in rule the same level of information that is needed to like our are one level of detail and transparency, but it's really the rules that are rules and statutes that are governing the overarching, like how the program should function. And so we're looking for those kinds of opportunities of like where there is alignment. And in the rulemaking process, there is always the chance that there's going to be varying perspectives. And so if something in rule is changed that doesn't align with the grant agreement you all get, or doesn't align perfectly, we're trying to have a conversation with DOJ of what does that actually mean in terms of will we have to how will that articulate to contracts since we're sending out 2-year contracts. So we just want to make sure that we are planning for what that could look like if through the rulemaking process, we're identifying potential changes.
Okay, that makes total sense. And I just think for everyone's edification, because I think often that boils down for people to could it affect our money? And I think that there are things that I'm thinking I've experienced in other contracts where something that had been an allowable expense before was needled out. It was no longer in alignment, like you mentioned. And so you couldn't fund that anymore. I don't think it has ever had an effect on our overall bottom line, but it does affect what you can and can't use the contract for. So that
Yep.
just might be helpful to anyone else out there because I know I was like, okay, but the
Yep.
link makes sense. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification. You're correct. It could one of those areas that of the total amount that's being funded may not change, but what you are allowed to spend it on based on what that rulemaking process concludes as, you are correct. That is where there could be changes for the second half of the biennium, not the first half. This is also kind of part of the intention of doing this engagement now is so that as there may be changes that folks can be thinking about it going into the second year of the biennium. We don't want to change things as we head into that first year.
And the rulemaking process takes, we'll be starting it very soon, or rules revision process. And so it will take us that long to go through all the steps. And we want to ensure that we take the time at the beginning to have that kind of collaborative space and feedback from you all as grantees before we move forward with the official RAC process. as Dorothy mentioned. So I know it can feel a little bit scary and it's a change, but I think ultimately it will be really a positive thing for ECEF, and ensuring that as a program that we're really aligned with the legislative intent of the program, that we are really solid on all the details administratively with the grant, and that we have alignment across like our grant agreements, what's in rules and definitions, administrative rules, as well. And I also need to update the grant manual because I have noticed that there are things that are also in the grant agreements that are not in the grant manual. And so there's just lots of moving parts and things that we're working to align and update. So yeah. If there are any other questions, you can feel free to email as well. And just know that we are keeping you apprised as soon as we find out more information. I will be sharing, and we're looking forward to the meeting with DOJ to be able to figure out more details of what that will look like moving forward. So what we've shared now is pretty much what we know and where we're at in the process. So, but you're so welcome to ask more questions. We just might not have a tangible answer, but we're here to support with whatever comes up for you. Thanks, Dorothy, again, for all your help. All right, so with that, I'm going to move on. Okay, move along to Brandon.
Woohoo. Fiscal update time, y'all. Mine's going to be short and sweet. So just a reminder, I know we talked about this last month, but in compliance with your grant agreements, any grantees who are not up to date with their current monthly programmatic reports or end of year reports from the last fiscal year, the 23-24, your claims will just be straight denied. You'll get the email, and then we will be able to kind of meet and chat about what is needed to get you back up to date, as well as in compliance with your grant agreement, grantees whose claimed amounts in AMS don't match their expenditure reports will have their claims sent back for modification. So just really want to clarify those processes with y'all. And I know Emma is going to be sending some updated meeting requests out for some that had kind of dropped off, or, we'll chat in your meeting, in your monthly grantee meetings. But just really want to ensure that y'all are up to date as we get to the end of the biennium and are able to access your funds. So, but that is it for fiscal.
Thank you, Brandon. I just wanted to highlight here that Zoom has forever just not been my favorite, and it has put default end dates into the meetings that I scheduled with grantees, the ongoing meetings. And so in the last 2 months, I'd say several of them have just disappeared off of all of our calendars. And I don't have any other way, like that's the reminder that I have, was it being on my calendar. And so I apologize if your meeting with us is one of those that vanished into the background. And so I've reached out to some of you who that happened to, and I'm still kind of backtracking and finding previous meetings that had deleted themselves. So fun technological issues, and I will be making sure to send you updated invites. And I am Brandon and I are both wanting to switch our meetings as much as possible to Teams. It seems to have less issues. We run into less issues with it, and it allows for like if one of us is out, that the other one can still open and host the meeting. With Zoom, only the host can open the meeting. So it makes it just not as logistically great for any absences that might happen. So when I send out emails, I'll be asking everyone if Teams is okay. And if you want to stick with Zoom, that's totally fine. We're willing to use either platform. But our preference, if there is no preference on your end, is to switch over to Teams. And for those that we don't have ongoing meetings with, I will be sending just a proposed date and time to you. And you can let us know if that works. And if it doesn't, we'll collaborate to choose another time. So just wanted to share that bit. And for Brandon, based on what they shared.
Yep.
Okay. All right, going to the next slide. So it's just a repeat slide where if any questions or concerns come up after the webinar or just in general, I believe at this point all of you have our emails and because we've sent many to you and the ECEF email. We don't have that one on there actually. I should add that. You can also email the general ECEF email. It's just ecef@delk.org.gov. And just a reminder that Brandon, because I think sometimes it's great we get CC'd on, like I'll get included in a fiscal email and Brandon might get included in a programmatic email, which is fine. I just want to clarify that generally if you email just me about a fiscal question, I will likely pass it along to Brandon because that's not my area of expertise. And I don't have any knowledge of AMS. So that specifically is Brandon's forte. And Brandon will likely do the same with programmatic emails and send them to me. But including both of us is never a bad thing. So you can keep on doing that if you have been.
Yeah, and I did throw the ECEF email in the chat as well.
Oh, great. And I'll add that on here for the next time. I don't know how I missed it. So. Okay, well, we're going to say goodbye and stop recording in a moment. And then those who want to stay and ask questions that are either